TSN this week. Sibs, Vibez, Ryan joining us tonight for the show. Plenty to talk about with week 1 in the playoffs. Division semis are done. Lots to talk about with those games. Yeah, hi everyone. Sibs, Vibez, and Ryan join us now on the show. And congrats again to Vibez for getting their team to the next round, and your team rocking along here pretty well. And as we take a look at the playoff grid, you guys are going to first got past the Wild. We'll talk about that in a second, but you've got Cleveland, who looked like they were going to be down and out against the Griffins after being down 2-0 in that series, but they come back and play well and take the Griffins out quickly in that one with 4 straight. Couple of teams who wound up winning 4 straight games in their series, guys, and definitely, we didn't see too many series like Binghamton and Syracuse where it went back and forth. We saw streaks in this one. Vibez, is that indicative of guys being available, do you think, or is it the type of player we have now that's causing these streaks, these teams who win a few and then, what do? They get cocky? What do you think's happening there?
I don't know. It seems like this is the year of the streak, doesn't it? Everybody got to check their drawers because there's a lot of streaks going on around here. We had Hartford on a 15-game win streak. The Gulls went on a huge win streak, and then unfortunately they went on a little bit of a losing streak. And then they struck themselves right out of the playoffs. But it's just the way it's been, teams get hot, teams get cold, they get hot again, and it's just been a steady theme here throughout the entire season.
Yeah, sometimes, Ryan, you can look at the lineups and say it's line matchups that make it happen, but when there's a streak of 3 games of some kind, it's you're seeing good lines who do well one game and then have a bad second game in some of these series and wind up having to getting run right out of the playoffs. It's not specific to any one line or two for a team. It just seems like for whatever reason they lose momentum. Maybe it's confidence, whatever it is, and then they find themselves, after being up 2-0 like the Griffins were, find themselves out of the playoffs, losing 4 straight. And I can't make really heads or tails of it myself.
I don't think there's really any kind of rhyme or reason for it. I know that, the effect of winning, like a game 3 and 4 or 5 and 6, I guess that can play into it. When you win game 1, you have a little bit of momentum going into the second game.
Right.
That definitely carries over a little bit. I don't think it can be, there's no science behind that. It's just kind of a feeling I've had, playing in the playoffs a couple times, especially in those back-to-backs. But I don't really have anything to say about it because it's just I think it's just a trend, a random occurrence that we've had so many.
Well, we're going to talk about some of these series right now, and let's talk about the Moose series right away. And you're going up against a good Wild team that obviously was a solid squad, and a lot of talent on that team. Roller Pig, one of the top 10 scorers in the playoffs so far after week 1, and certainly other talent on there. But you found the combination of a couple of different things, I think, Vibez, and I think some of that is and I said the other night, some of it has to do with strategy, and I think maybe you're looking at this in a strategic way, much different than maybe some other GMs are, and maybe that was your advantage.
I mean, a lot of it, most of it, pretty much all of it has to do with the players. Let's just be honest. I think at the end of the day, you got to give the players the most credit. Yes, I understand I am a player too. I'm not just a manager, but at the end of the day, you gotta lean on your horses to get it done, and most of the credit goes to them. Yeah, a little bit of strategy. I'm a chess player, like figuratively and for real. I love chess. I'm a pretty strategic sort of guy, and when it came to this series, there was things I did, and you always have to have a move and a plan B. You know what I mean? And it just so happened that I was making my moves, and I never had to even resort to my plan B. I was like a young Cassius Clay on the ropes, bobbing and weaving.
Uh-huh.
And it's just like everything that I did. B Nice seemed to fall right into it. He stepped right into it, and I kind of felt like the puppet master pulling the strings for a little bit there. But at the end of the day, I would say 95 or even more percent of the credit goes to the players.
And one of the players that you wound up getting in a trade with the Gulls and has only played 2 games for you in the playoffs, but has done a heck of a job so far is Mafia, man. 2 goals, 7 assists, a +4. And, Mafia, I think a lot of people, when they hear about a good player, they're probably thinking it's somebody who's really a high scorer. Mafia can score. There's no question about that. But one of the things I realized about him last season is he is a good setup man. He will take the heat, and he will set up his teammates. And, I'll never forget it, and I bet you Vish B will tell you the same thing. Vish wound up BCUing for us for a game last season, never played with Mafia. I don't remember who was on the other side. And Vish was playing center. Mafia just fed him and knew where he was going to be and gave him so many great opportunities like this line had been together. That's what Mafia is really good for. It's that experience and that knowledge and that ability to understand who he's playing with and what he needs to do to help that line be successful.
Yeah. Mafia is, you know what I mean? It's like, first and foremost, I don't know how the hell the guy ended up on the no management list. I mean, maybe there was some sort of problem.
Story.
Like, I don't know what the whole thing was, but at the end of the day, you want good managers in this league, and the guy like Mafia, man, certainly deserves to be a manager, whether it be an AGM or an actual GM or whatever, because he sees the game very well. And having him on my team, it's almost like having a second me in a lot of ways. I see a lot of things. If I miss something, Mafia is there. So I mean, having him on the team, and he's not even a manager on the team, but it's almost like having a third manager or something. He's phenomenal. He's a great team player. And he's I've heard people say things in the shout box like, oh, he's really not that good, and oh, he's really not this, and he's they've called him a scrub hunter too. I'm telling you right now, Mafia Man is an absolute elite player. He is arguably the best player in the entire league, and having him as a weapon in the lineup is just, it's like fucking Christmas every day having him around, you know what I mean? And he's going to be huge for us here moving forward. And you put him on that line with Timmy Z and Sussman, and that's a powerhouse of a line.
And those 3 guys are in the top 20 in scoring so far in the playoffs, and that obviously is a big part of it. And one thing that you said, and certainly, again, Mafia, you like to have that at least 1 or 2 other players who have that kind of, presence on the team. I think Hartford. I think Stockton had that last season, and Ryan can talk to the Wild, and you guys have multiple people. You even said it, I think, earlier this season on one of our shows that it was kind of a community running of a team, and I think that works better than maybe just 1 or 2 guys and not having other leaders who could help step up and help the GMs out.
Oh, it absolutely makes everything easier. Everybody knows where their role is. It just makes the season go by smoother, in my opinion. And I think that, with the community or, a management team with a bunch of leaders, you can make better decisions based on who's playing where, who's playing with who, stuff like that, or who gels with who. I think it just makes the entire process that much easier.
Yeah. And you want to know something too? It's like, so all the players on my team, like, yeah, at the end of the day, they do kind of concede to me, and at least I like to think that they respect me as a manager. You know what I mean? Maybe not. Maybe I have to ask some of them and see what they say. But it's almost like I have a team full of people who are capable of running a team, and I'm a receptive sort of GM. I'm not like, it's not like I'm running a Hitler youth camp or something. You know what I mean? I listen to what my players say, and sometimes I may miss things that they pick up on, and I feel like as a GM, you need to be receptive to that.
Right.
But it's a huge, greatly valuable asset to have on a team when you have a bunch of guys who are not only able to be responsible for themselves, but just be responsible for the team in general. And real quick, just backtracking to those three players that I mentioned when I'm talking about Mafia Man, Timmy, and Sessman.
Right.
The thing about them, and it's very much so like my other line too, is they're not one-trick ponies. You know what I mean? They're not just completely tunnel-visioned offensive players.
Right.
Yeah, they have a lot of offensive talent and a lot of gifts in that area, but they understand team defense. They've all bought into a defensive first sort of system here, and they've really excelled in it, and it's a strong thing right now.
Ryan, what did you what are your impressions of how this series wound up with the Wild and the Moose?
I mean, there were a couple players I thought really glowed. I mean, we touched on Mafia. He played a phenomenal series. I think one of the other unsung heroes is definitely Domi. I thought he had a great series in net, posting a 90.7 save percentage with only giving up 5 goals in 4 games. All 4 games. He won, by the way. He had a tremendous series. Probably, lockdown goaltender, and something you need in the playoffs. Goaltending definitely separates the teams. And then there's also a couple players who played phenomenally on defense. CJD, the professor. You have Pitcher Swag, who had a nice series. It looked like there are a whole cast of defensemen who played quite well and led them to victory. Was there anyone I missed there, Vibez?
No, it's just that when you're talking about Domi, you're going to make me cry.
Why is that?
Yeah, long story.
Well, yeah, we talked a little bit about it before the show, and there's nothing official going on, but we'll see how this plays out for the Moose, whether or not they've got everybody they need to have, and that's the hellish thing about the summer season. And not that it really has anything to do with it being summer, but man, we have seen more guys come and go and be part of a team for so long, and then all of a sudden their availability in August has been garbage so far. We saw what happened with the Rain with scheduling issues, and then Orioles wind up having an injury and concussion and not being able to play. It's been a tough season for a lot of teams and a lot of GMs. It's just been hellish to deal with it, and I hope things even out a little bit, and I hope things work out for your team, Vibez, because the Moose have made a hell of a run so far. You hate to see for any reason somebody not be available. Hopefully, that won't be the case, and guys will be able to figure out how they're going to make it. And be there. We're having a good playoff so far. You hate to see some key players not be able to be part of this moving forward.
Yeah, I guess we'll just play the waiting game and see what happens. And it could end up being a very interesting round 2 for me and my team, but we'll see.
Within your division, the other side, Cleveland and the Griffins again. Griffins up 2-0. We saw in the shot box everybody declaring Cleveland dead, and I gotta tell you, I thought the Griffins were a solid team, but man, if I'm one of them, I would have hated to see that, because if there is nothing that motivates another team more is when everybody wants to shit talk them and gang up on them, and you know what? Cleveland was smart. They didn't get involved in it. They kept their mouths shut, and they did what they had to do, despite all sorts of issues, including not having Siege available on defense, and went ahead and won 4 straight after being down 2-0, and pretty damn silent shout box right now about Cleveland. I'm sure they'll pick right back up again as I say this, but again, a team with incredible talent, and but looked like they were going to really have a hard time with the Griffins, who played incredibly well the first 2 games and really looked like they were in control. But the Monsters, we heard a little bit from Derms in the post games. They want to win. They feel like they've got the squad. They felt like it all season long, and you got to run a marathon here, and you can't run hard for 4/5 of it and then say we're too tired to run the rest. And give them credit. They picked up and they went ahead and won 4 games in a row and got them into the quarterfinals now.
Yeah, they did, and you know what? You got to give Freeze a little bit of credit. I mean, he had last season looming over him, and he called his shot in the shout box. I mean, when you hear the guy talk, sometimes it sounds like he may have banged a little bit of heroin in his arm or something before he came on the radio and started talking. But that doesn't take away the fact that he's really good at what he does, and he called his shot. He said that he said we're going to win tonight, and if we win tonight, we'll win the series, and that's exactly what they did. When everyone was jumping on, and by the way, I did predict that not the Condors, but what the fuck bird is it? The Griffins. I I did predict that they were going to win the series, but they didn't. And when everyone was getting down on the Monsters, I was the one saying, listen, this team isn't dead yet. You know what I mean? You got to give this team a little bit of respect. And hey, listen, all credits to them, all credits to Freeze. Freeze called his shot. He said, "Listen, we're going to come back," and that's what they did. So I take my hat off to him and his team.
Level of talent on this Monsters team, and getting some guys back later in the season, guys who were part of this beforehand last season, getting guys like Derms back to be part of this run, Ryan. I got to believe they've got some motivation going to want to prove that last season was just some decision making that wasn't good for the team in the long run, and that they have the talent to come back and win this one.
Oh, for sure, there's no doubt. Last season's definitely looming over management's head. Big Freeze, Sieg, and then T-Ball. It's how loud they were in the shout box. The way they lost definitely was huge. However, this season, I think they actually have a better team than they did last season. I think up front, they're far more. What's the word? I think they have 3 really, really, really good lines, whereas last year I thought it was maybe 2. Mm-hmm. And I think the defensive core is a little bit better. With Sieg in the lineup, I think she comes back this week, if I'm not correct.
I believe she is, yeah.
They're going to have a full team, and I think they'll be much more prepared for this upcoming series against the Moose. I think it's going to be a little bit more difficult. If they were going to go out, I would said it would be in the first round. However, they're still fighting.
I would give the Griffins a lot of credit too. 3 of those 4 games that they lost there at the end, all 4-3 finals. And when you can keep within a goal of Cleveland and make a game of it, it's could have easily gone to a 7th game. It's possible Cleveland could have swept. I mean, they lost game 3 and 4 by that score. So Cleveland did just enough to get there, and the Griffins, coming from that last spot there in that division, still put up a damn good fight, and give them credit for having a good season. Well,
for sure, the Western Central was definitely a difficult division. You knew that anyone in that 4th seed was going to be a good team.
On the other side in the West, guys, what an interesting couple of series that we saw there. And we'll start off first with the Game 7 that we saw last night between the Reign and the Barracuda. Of course, the Reign had a 3-0 lead in this series and looked like they were in control. Then all of a sudden, they lose Game 4, 1-goal game. You're thinking, okay, the Barracuda just kept themselves alive for a game. Comes to Game 5 and all sorts of issues with scheduling and having to ECU that game. And in the end, the Reign losing that one 9-0. Just a drubbing in that one that, quite frankly, I think is something that, definitely affected how Ontario felt about their chances after that. They lose Game 6 that little bit later on, 3-1 to San Jose, and all of a sudden the Barracuda are in control. We watched the Game 7 last night, Vibes, and it looked like early on San Jose might run away with it with a quick 2-0 lead, and then settling down a little bit, but then again behind in that game, 4-0, I believe, before they finally scored their first goal in the second period. That second half of that game last night for the Reign, they were in control of it, and unfortunately, a slow start caused them some issues, and they just could not come back. And boy, what a rough series for the Reign. They were a solid team who definitely could be in the next round right now, and just everything went wrong with them at the wrong time.
The Barracuda won that Game 7 within like a matter of like maybe 7 or 8 minutes. Mm-hmm. The rest of the period 1 was kind of slow, and it was just like a really brief period of time where it was bang, 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 like goal, goal, goal. And that's how the Barracuda won it, because in reality, the rest of that game was dominated by the Reign. The rest of that game was dominated by the Ontario Reign.
Right.
Say what you wanted. They got a lot of perimeter shots, but they were controlling down low, and they were using the point probably better than I've seen a team use the point all season. For a while there, you thought that maybe Ontario was going to come back, but it just never quite happened for them. So it was just. It was like a really brief collapse that ended up costing them that game, because the Barracuda just pumped them in a matter of minutes.
You get down, you have these kinds of games, Ryan, where, again, there's a team up 3-0, and all of a sudden they're having issues trying to get lines together, trying to get ECUs together. Unfortunately, like we said, Orioles having to deal with some physical problems. He's not able to play. That kind of thing you can avoid, but when it comes to management and getting lines together and all that is such, it doesn't seem like much, but is incredibly important. And they wound up having to take a couple of penalties to start the game last night. They killed the 5-on-3, but shortly after it was over, they wound up getting scored on, and the Barracuda gained momentum. So, right from that problem that they have with scheduling games, they wind up suffering a little bit at the beginning of the game last night, and gave San Jose a chance to start out on a good note, and that carried them. It was enough, and something like managing your schedules is a big deal.
Oh yeah, it's a huge difference. Let alone just, finding lines that will work, or, all that. Getting people to show up is so important.
Yeah.
And that's half the battle. The other half is, again, finding, lines that people like playing with, and that work. It's so key, and it's probably the most underappreciated part of management is, making lines and getting players ready for games, stuff like that. That's kind of like the gritty work, but that goes really, really under the radar, other than, selecting your squad and creating it. It's just, organizing it and then getting people there. It's so key, especially in the playoffs.
And Nuoc Sid with a 23 save effort last night in that final game. Didn't look like he was going to get a lot of work early on, and then all of a sudden the Reign got their offense together. They were constantly getting opportunities, but good defense and good goaltending helping out there and giving San Jose the victory. And you know what? If you look at some of the stats, the early leaders in scoring, numbers 4 and 5, Davie 14 and Patriot of Canada lead their San Jose Barracuda team in scoring. Magic Man number 10 there. So getting a lot of good work from these guys early on. Again, you want to see some good offensive numbers, but defense in the end, I think is a huge benefit. And Newhook went 3-2 in the playoffs so far. Not necessarily great numbers, but he came up in the clutch last night when he needed to.
And that's the key. I mean, he really stepped up his game. He looked great in net, as you said, saving 23 pucks out of 25. You really can't ask much more from your goalie, especially when, he lifted the team up when the Reign started pressing. He was huge.
And nothing for the Reign to be ashamed about. They certainly played a good series. Just ran into some issues, and they're on their way out, as well as the San Diego Gulls. Well, I guess the bird was the word, but the bird took a buckshot square to the noggin and found themselves dead on arrival in that series, just not able to deal with the Dallas Stars, who seemingly were ready for them and played very good hockey against them. Maybe because they came in at last spot, they might not have gotten a lot of respect, but came away with a lot of good wins in this one. Up 3-0 in this series as well before the Gulls finally took a game, but Texas with a shutout to close out Game 5, and the Stars are for real.
Yeah, and I disagree. The bird may have been the word, but now we're having the bird for dinner.
Yeah, just again, we talked a little bit about it last week, but I still can't help but feel that a 23-game winning streak, which you have to keep on winning. I mean, that's your job. You don't lose a game on purpose just because you want to stop the winning streak. So I understand that, but sometimes a ton of success can wind up maybe going to the heads of players, and maybe you coast. Maybe unconsciously you coast a little bit, and you come into the first series and you come into the first game and you struggle and you don't play so well. But then Game 2 happens, and then Game 3 happens, and all of a sudden there's panic. And as great as it was for them to be on a winning streak, I think in the end, it may have hurt them in the long run.
I think the biggest thing with the Gulls was I think they bought into their own hype, to be honest with you. I think they let it go to their head, and they bought into their own hype. They thought that they were going to coast through Texas. Suddenly a bunch of people were picking them to go all the way. And they ran into a Texas team that Texas has been playing playoff hockey for 2-3 weeks now.
Yeah, true.
They had to fight their way. They had to scratch and claw to get in. Battling out Stockton for the final spot, and they're in full playoff mode. And I think the Gulls came in here thinking that they were gonna just bird is the word all over fucking Texas, and it just didn't quite pan out that way. So good for Texas, and shit on San Diego. Nice try though.
Ryan, I mean, what's your thoughts on that win streak? And does that make any sense to you at all, or do you think that that's not really a valid issue that they may have had to deal with?
I mean, it could be. I don't really know. I don't really have, I'm still trying to wrap my brain around it, because, it's not like they got beat, by a little bit. They got their ass kicked. Mm-hmm. In the first couple of games I was looking, they really only, in the 4 wins that they had, they really only stole 1. The other 3 games, mm-hmm. They held significant time on attack. They beat them in faceoffs, beat them in shots. The first couple of games were, an ass kicking. Game 1 and 2, and then in game 5, was the exclamation point. It's not like San Diego got EA'd or anything like that. Texas just was the better team in this series and had the better stats, had the better time on attack, and the better shots, better face-offs. So in the end, it's really not a shocking result, when you look at the numbers that way. And I watched a couple of the games, and it's kind of consistent with that. Maybe it's because they won 23 games in a row and let it go to their head. Maybe it's just because Texas grinded, and they just weren't ready for that.
I think it's a combination of both, honestly. I think it's a combination of both, Ryan. I think, Texas was playing playoff hockey for a while now, and, San Diego just thought they were going to coast, man. It's probably a combination.
I would think about that, but we watched that one game where Texas was trying to get in, and they lost at overtime.
Right.
The goals, after playing that game, should know better than to, just coast against that team. I mean, they almost lost that game.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's the whole coasting thing, because it's not like they didn't know what to expect. They had just played them, and Texas put up a great effort. I don't know. Maybe, I guess. Well, it's kind of confusing, but obviously Texas was the team to deserve to keep on going in the playoffs.
And to go back to what you said, Vibes, I think we saw, I think it's great to have some energy about your team, but I think once you go in the shout box and you start saying a lot, you're just inviting people in the shout box to give you hell. Once they started losing a couple, like the first game or two, it was already there were already comments in the shout box from some of the San Diego players saying, yeah, that was a bogus goal. Yeah, we got EA'd. I looked at those first two games. There was no EAing. It was just good play by Dallas.
Yeah.
And putting pucks on the net. If you want to call that EAing, that's part of the game. I mean, you'll hear pros say that all the time. Get pucks on the net, get them in deep, and that's what they did. And unfortunately, you can call it an EA play, but that's part of hockey, and you've got to just live with it.
I mean, it happens in real life too. Like you'll consistently see defensemen take what's considered a stupid wrist shot, and it'll go through a maze of players or get hit by someone and then take a stupid bounce and go in. It happens to everyone, and it happens just about every game. There's one or two of those stupid goals, even in the NHL.
Look, let's just be honest, okay? Mm-hmm. On a talent level, San Diego had a little bit more talent than Texas, so to speak, up front. Mm-hmm. But Texas systemically took them down. They broke that team down, and they played to their strengths. And that's what successful teams do. You need to find the way that you can win the game. The way that you can win the game may not be exactly how the other team can win the game. And, at the end of the day, that's what this series was, and they were some close games, but that was how Texas had to win. The scores were close, but in reality, it was just it was a team that came to play, and the other team didn't. You're not going to see in the real NHL, you're not going to see a bunch of players hanging around before the game doing the fucking chicken dance. You know what I mean? You got to be ready to play. And I don't think San Diego was.
I thought the crazy part was in two of those games, the Game 5 and then also Game 2, Texas had ECU defensemen, literally four ECUs, and still were able to keep up a play. Obviously it's probably led by the forward group. None of all of those guys have played together now for a couple of weeks. And you have some seriously talented forwards. However, I thought that was interesting. Maybe, San Diego went in lightly just because they said, oh, look at that. Those guys are, CHLers or, guys who don't play all that often. Maybe we can, just kind of take a game off. Probably not Game 5, but maybe Game 2.
And there was also something that I think we talked about, and I think you may have even talked about it yesterday, Vibes, during your show, was about some of the players who had helped out San Diego towards the end, and perhaps maybe they wound up getting some help that made them that much better during that win streak, and gave them the opportunity to win. C. Armstrong is the guy that everyone's saying, oh, you guys only won 23 games because C. Armstrong won his 4, which of course is incredibly stupid, but certainly part. If you get a veteran like that on your team, it could absolutely help out. But they won 23 games, with and without him. It's not not just one guy. So I definitely say he had an impact for sure in the games he played. But you don't go on a 23 game winning streak if not all cylinders are firing, and so
right.
To me, that whole C. Armstrong thing is just incredibly stupid, and
I think it's bogus too. I agree. I think it's bogus too because the guy didn't play 23 games coming down the stretch.
Yeah,
So, I mean, I'm sure he was a help, but come on.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, let's get back to what's been going on. And so now you've got the division finals set, and you've got the Texas Stars and the San Jose Barracuda matching up. We'll talk about the matchups a little bit when we are about to. Well, actually, I don't know. Do we do it now or do we do it when we're about to make our picks? What do you think?
I think we'll hang on to it. What do you say?
Okay.
I think that sounds better.
Yeah, that's fine. So
Yeah,
let's do the East. The East is probably sitting there waiting, listening anyway. So let's talk a little East.
We certainly know Moose is. So let's get to that first series against Bridgeport. Yeah. The Sound Tigers.
Now you know what, Moose is there. How about we? No, okay, let's go. Okay, we're good.
Well, you can get to his bedtime then if we get to this now. The Sound Tigers, 1 goal in the first 3 games. That's not going to win you anything. They came back in Game 4, lost up, won 5 games to 4, and again, obviously the Hershey Bears are a good all-around team. Moose in his playoff games so far this season, in the 3 games that he's won, he's faced 42 shots. That's 14 per game. He has a 90.5 save percentage, 1.33 goals against average. You have been hearing a lot of stuff in the shout box of, well, he's a good goaltender, but he's not that good. His defense, makes him that much better. And I want to talk to that a little bit. First of all, 14 shots on goal. He is averaging almost 15 shots on goal for the regular season. That's about average, if not a little bit above average, what you'll see in any game. So his defense isn't holding him down to 8 shots a game to deal with. He's getting a good amount of shots on him every game. And his his numbers in the regular season, 2.43 goals against, 83.5 save percentage. If you think that's his defense doing it for him, you're an idiot. It's plain and simple that his defense is damn good, but Moose is that good of a goaltender. And I will argue that a better defense lets you play the game that you know how to play, that you play well as a goaltender. When you have a bad defense, you start sliding around. You start making plays and trying to anticipate way too soon. You get out of your comfort zone of what you do as a goaltender. Bad defense doesn't make a goaltender a good defense doesn't make a goaltender better. It allows a goaltender to do what he can do. And so to say any goaltender is better because of the defense to me is idiotic. And you obviously don't know the position well. So obviously Moose is a friend of mine. We talk about him all the time. We kid about him, and we have a lot of fun with him. But he is a damn good goaltender, maybe the best one in the league this season. And certainly that's debatable, but you can't say it's his defense that's carrying him. That's just a load of crap.
He's a pretty good goalie. He's a really good goalie because, I mean, he's a pretty good mascot too. And he might be a better goalie than he is mascot. And he's a really good mascot. So you got to give credit when it's due.
Definitely, he's been one of the top goalies now for the last couple of seasons.
Yeah.
That's pretty much undisputable if you look at his numbers, and his stats and stuff like that. I mean, for Christ's sake, his worst season was season 1. That was a while ago. He won 11-11 with the Reign. Since then, he's been spectacular. It's saying that he's not is just stupid. Just dumb.
Yeah.
And you want to know something too, Sibs?
Yep.
Goalies who were really good in season 1 and season 2, from me, get a little bit less respect because they may have been middle sitters and they may have just exploited the game and exploited things that the game allowed them to do. Goalies that have been really good in season 3, season 4, and season 5, particularly like the end of season 4 and season 5, they're really good goalies because you can't be a middle sitter anymore. I mean, you can to a certain degree, but you need to be able to put your own spin on it. But for the most part, you have to be a really good positional goalie that actually plays the position now.
Right.
So these goalies now are really good, and I mean, Moose he's been a constant. You know what I mean? He's been steady. He's been a constant fixture back there for whatever team it is that he's playing for. And give the kid a little bit of credit.
And I think also going from 16 to 17, we saw a lot of good goaltenders struggle. Moose was not one of them. He actually got better. And any goaltender who got better going to 17, to me, that's somebody who has the right mentality of a goaltender because that game was intended to be better for the goaltender, to give him more tools as a goaltender. I'm telling you, it absolutely is a lot better than for 16. It doesn't let guys just game a position. It makes them actually have to play it, and Moose did a good job in adjusting, and it has gotten better.
Yeah, you got to be a goalie now. You got to be an actual goalie.
So the Bears obviously took care of Bridgeport pretty quickly, and I don't know what to really say about that series except that Bridgeport had a decent season, had some good players on it, but again, you're going up against the Bears team that has been in the lead the whole season, and it is expected to be where they are right now.
Outclassed by a much better team in Hershey. Never really had a chance. Bridgeport, you did, good, I guess, in a really bad division, but the party's over, so see me afterwards, and I'll give you some goodie bags to go home with.
Yeah, I mean, they can't say anything more. They were just outgunned. It wasn't going to be a fair fight to start with.
Yeah.
It was like going into a barroom brawl. They have nothing, and, the Bears had a shotgun. Nothing they can do.
Yeah, the other series in that Eastern Atlantic, Thunderbirds and the Hartford Wolfpack, and certainly everyone wanted to see what Hartford could bring to the table. Well, they took game 1, and then after that, they got blown out 5-0 in game 2. Then, unfortunately, lost 3 games in a row by 1 goal in each one of them. The Thunderbirds, with Bacon Weave, certainly backstopping that team, had a bit of an advantage. Certainly, we know what Hartford is capable of, and we know what their goaltending can do as well. And Navy Nick has been pretty hot all season long. This is just a case of, again, maybe a little bit of Hartford maybe overplaying, maybe thinking they really had to go out and prove something to everybody that they are that good, and just struggled to stay in these games, and then wind up losing 4 in a row to Springfield, who, let's face it, if there's a team that might have a chance in the playoffs right now to beat Hershey coming out of that division, it would have been Springfield. And so this is probably the better matchup or the worst matchup for Hershey to go up against the Thunderbirds.
Yeah, I mean, if there was a team that's going to come out of that division that has a chance against Hershey, it would be the T-Birds. In terms of this series, I mean, I guess the T-Birds weren't really world beaters either, but look, Hartford was just not a good team ever. Even when people were riding high on them, they were just never a good team, and they had Hockey Town, and he ended up getting banned, and just had nobody left really. Maybe Cifea, but I don't know, not a whole hell of a lot after that.
Yeah, I gotta agree. I thought, up front they didn't have a ton of spark. I thought Hockey Town definitely helped provide that and create. However, after he was gone, there's not much left there. I thought their defense was serviceable, just not enough punch up front. Needed a couple more goals in order to make the series a little bit more interesting.
Navy Nick went 1-3 on the series. 79% save percentage, 3.22, 62 shots in 4 games is a little over 17 a game, and if your goaltender is getting peppered that much, that's never a good sign. Once you start getting anywhere between 15 to almost 20, your chances go down tremendously that you're going to win this game. And when you hit 20 shots on goal against, typically you're not going to win this game. I mean, we saw that happen last night, but that has been such a mainstay stat that I think most people, if you looked at it, you're going to see that. It's one I would love to run on every game, but I just don't have the time to do that. But typically, if you look at games and you look at how many shots on goal someone goes up against, if it's around 12 for both goaltenders, yeah, the game could go either way. When you start seeing one goaltender hit up to 17, 18, 19 shots, it gets increasingly tough. And I think Hartford had a bit of that issue earlier in the season. Even during their win streak, they had moments where they gave up a lot of shots, but got good goaltending and didn't give up second opportunities. Unfortunately, it just didn't work out that way in the playoffs for them this season.
Yeah, if there was one thing that was going to propel them to a couple more wins in the series, it would have had to have been goaltending. Unfortunately, just didn't make enough saves.
I got nothing else to say about Hartford because I can't wait for this to be done, so I don't ever have to talk about Hartford ever again.
Well, I think we're done with this one.
Rest in peace, Hartford.
You were never really good.
Let's talk. Good boy. Let's talk about the Eastern North.
Told you a fraud.
Oh boy. Well, you could take the emails, not me. That was Vibez, by the way. Hope you know that. I think everyone knows your voice by now.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they know it's me.
The Eastern North. Let's just talk quickly about the Marlies and the Comets. Utica looked like they had a lot of good tools that could cause some problems for some teams, but Toronto, they are really going to be an incredibly tough team and maybe a much better matchup for the Bears if they're able to get past Syracuse in the next round. But Toronto just really putting a lot of points up on there. 9 goals, 5 goals, 9 goals, 7 in the last game. Just a lot of great output. And, of course, even with all that, they've got great goaltending back there as well with Mello and Mellon. I don't know how you stop this team. We'll talk more about that in a second with what Syracuse have to go up against. But Utica may have had a very slim chance of upsetting these guys, but after giving up 9 in the first game and then 5 in the second, yeah, I got to believe that did a hell of a lot of damage to Utica and their confidence in being able to play with these guys.
Yeah, I think the Utica defense was exposed.
Yeah,
I guess that's a kind of obvious statement, I guess, when you give up 9 goals in several games. I feel like they were pretty weak all season, and they were finally exposed. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I was just counting it up. It was 30 goals in those 4 games.
Yeah.
That's just way too much. And, when they're putting up that many, you have no chance unless you're putting up that many. But against, as you said, that great goaltending tandem, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, and if I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say Utica just, they didn't have enough, to keep up with that or to stop it. It just, they have a great forward core, Toronto. But yeah, that's all.
And, what can you say about the Marlies? I mean, I think a first round matchup like that, I kind of feel like maybe they would have done better if they had played against a team that might have been giving them a little bit more of a challenge, because now they're going to have to go in and take on Syracuse, who, again, in a 7-game series, and between this one and San Jose, I kind of believe this one was probably the best series of any of them in the first round here. The second-seeded Crunch and third-seeded Sens, battling back and forth in this one. Sens taking the first game, the Crunch the next two, and then it was back and forth, 1-1, 1-1. And we watched a Game 7 last night where it was tight for almost 2 periods before finally Syracuse, waiting, as Vibez mentioned, waiting for something to happen and finding an opportunity on a quick breakout, a quick transition out, where they're able to get basically a 2-on-1 and a good quick cross crease pass in the last couple of seconds, getting that first goal very late in the second, getting another one early in the third. And Lobo Dangles a big part of those first 2 goals, and of course the empty netter at the end by Lobo, giving them the 3-0 win. I think in a Game 7 against a solid team like the Senators, I don't care what you might have thought before that. If you don't think Lobo is good enough, or if you think he's a quote-unquote scrub hunter, I think you have to think again about that.
He's been everyone's favorite dartboard for like 2 seasons now.
Yeah.
And, at the end of the day, actions speak louder than words, and he got it done. He got it done in a Game 7. And, you can't take that away from him. I don't care who you are. Nobody can take that away from him. When it was crunch time, excuse the pun, but when it came to be crunch time, he got it done.
Even further, I mean, he went 3-0 in the playoff series there, putting up 10 points, 5 goals, 5 assists. That's super balanced. And yeah, he was in some, gigantic contests, that Game 7, and then Game 5.
Right.
In that 2-1 victory against what I think was Binghamton's first line. Getting that win was key, and he produced all series long. I think the whole scrub hunting thing is another one of those ridiculous, tags that the LG community has put on, him.
And so the Crunch moving on and playing the Marlies, and we talked a little bit about the Sens last couple of weeks after the trade deadline, and I give credit to Kostom. At the time we said, he's taking over a team. He's making a lot of moves at the trade deadline. This team was already good. What's the chemistry going to be like? Well, they played well. They played incredibly well the rest of the way of the season, and took the Crunch to 7 games and could have very easily won this series. So, whatever you want to say, I congratulate Kostom on taking over a team that way and taking it far and making a lot of moves and taking it a good deal. He should be given a lot of credit for what he was able to do in the short time that he's been running this team.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know what the hell he was doing. It was kind of weird, but I mean, it's kind of like I don't know if you ever had chicken and waffles, but when you first hear about chicken and waffles, you say to yourself, "What the hell what are you doing with that? That don't go together." And you try it, it's pretty good. So it's kind of like what he did here. He basically made LG's version of chicken and waffles because you didn't know what the hell he was doing, but it worked for the time being. And then he ran into a Syracuse team that was able to get him, out of the playoffs in 7. But, he took on a team when things were going a little haywire. You know what I mean? You had that train wreck melt running the joint. Mm-hmm. And, he got banned. And, he had a really tough job to handle. And he did it pretty well. So credits to him.
Yeah, I mean, on top of that, he also had the adversity of Vezina, being called up, a major player, and he was able to deal with it and, lead that team into a really tough playoff series with Syracuse. I mean, I'm not going to say they had put together a great team. I think, it was an unlucky draw. You know what I'm saying? It's just Syracuse matched up, in my opinion, pretty well against them. It's just tough,
Good effort by the Sens, and one thing that was reminded of me by Sin on our YouTube chat. Game 7 last season against the Senators, 2-0 win. Guess who had both goals in that game? Lobo Dangles. So
I was going to say I'm going to go out on a limb and say Lobo.
Yeah, and again, you just need to look at numbers and stop making stupid comments in the shout box that have nothing to do with reality. So moving on from that one. Again, Syracuse and Toronto in that other quarterfinal. So we're down to 8 teams now. Where do you guys want to start on talking about this series and making predictions?
Why don't we go west to east, like before? Give the West a little bit of love again.
All right, well, the West is going to have a new representative this season to try and get to that semifinal game, since the defending champs, the Heat, are not in it. And it will be a good matchup, Texas and San Jose. Again, both of these teams have played incredibly well this season, and the Barracuda battling the rain most of it. Texas coming in late to get past it or hold on to a lead against the Heat. Slightly different stories. Maybe Texas was a tad hungrier before this first round, but after San Jose was so close to getting knocked out in that first round, I don't think that's necessarily the case anymore. I think both of these teams are just as hungry to try and do something here in this round. I think offensively these teams both have a lot to offer. I like Newak and Gold. I just think he is a solid player who can really, at this point in the playoffs, you want somebody like that who is going to answer the call, who's going to play with a very level head. And if you watched the game last night, he wasn't sliding all over the place to make 23 saves. He was in great position the whole time. And that, to me, is really a part of what gets you there, is a good, solid, steady goaltender. I think Dallas could cause a lot of trouble in this one, but I think at this point I'd have to go with San Jose. Ducks, J-Cap, Squid, who's played in that Game 7 last night and played incredibly well. Ziggle, Razor Edge, Loki, just all playing incredibly well right now. Patriot of Canada, as well as we said, he's in the top in scoring. Just a lot of good quality talent that is hitting at the right time right now. I think I have to take San Jose in this one. But you know what? I don't think it's going to be that easy. I think it's going to be a 7-game series.
It's Go ahead, Ryan. Go ahead.
No, it's all you. Vibes.
No, you got it. Go.
Okay. I gotta agree with you. I think San Jose has a little bit of an offensive advantage. I like some of their forwards a little bit more than Texas's. On the back end, it looks like I like Texas's defense actually a little bit better. I think they match up pretty well. I like Apollo, Chad, backwards of Philly. I think they're, all those 3 players are going to be the major players coming up in this series. However, I gotta believe that I think San Jose is going to win it. I agree though with you, Sibs, that it's not going to be easy for San Jose. I think it's going to be in 6, though. I don't think it'll be 7.
This is a really tough series to call. First and foremost, you can talk up the Texas offense as much as you want. But the Barracuda offense is at least twice, maybe 3 or 4 times as good as the Texas offense. Let's just be clear about that. This is a offense versus defense, and everyone talks always about how defense wins it. So we're going to find out here. I mean, the Barracuda defense is not terrible, but not nearly as good. And when I say defense, I mean a team D. The team defense sort of category has to go into the favor of the Stars. But just sheer offensive power is definitely in favor of the Barracuda. But now here's the thing. Texas was able to thwart a San Diego Gulls team, which was pretty offensively gifted. But the Barracuda offense is a different type of offensively gifted. They have much more dynamic forwards. The forwards of the San Diego Gulls were good, but not nearly as shifty and dynamic as the Barracuda forwards. So ultimately, we're gonna find out. I mean, I can definitely be wrong here, and there is a part of me that says maybe Texas does have the formula. But ultimately, I just feel like there's just too much strength on the Barracuda, and I think they're going to brute force Texas and win this series. Are we making predictions? You want a prediction from me, or?
Yeah, it'd be nice if you did that.
All right, so I'm gonna take the Barracuda in 6. Give me 6. Barracuda in 6.
I got to be honest. I got the voice going in the back of my head that's saying that I'm going to get fooled again and that Texas is going to pull it out. But my brain's saying, no, it's got to be San Jose. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, right? Because my brain is telling me San Jose, but I have this weird feeling that Texas is going to win. But my brain says San Jose.
And I mentioned Newark on San Jose side. Let's not forget they've got Painter and Peaky Blinders on the side for Texas, and they've had so far have done pretty well in the playoffs, and so you've got to believe these guys are also pretty solid there. It's not a huge advantage in goaltending. I think it's a slight one maybe for San Jose. Galley, the backup on that side as well. So good goaltending matchups there. I just think the offense is a little bit too strong. Let's move on to the next series and that Vibes will not say anything about, I'm sure, because he didn't pick last time, and I doubt he's going to pick this time. So, Ryan, it's between you and me to talk about the Moose and the Cleveland Monsters. And, again, we talked about this Monster team having some issues before the playoffs even started, and we're able to get past that and move on forward. And I think that can mean a lot for a team when you can get past an issue, come back the way they did, and show some great fortitude there of being able to go past what everyone else is saying and just win. I think Cleveland is for real. I think they really believe strongly in what they're saying about their chances and about their team and how they built it for this season. I just don't know in the end if everything has gone well enough now that they are back to being together as one team. Derms has told us yes. I'm waiting to see that in Game 1, maybe Game 2 of this series, before I decide for sure that Cleveland has their head on straight.
Yeah, I gotta agree. I mean, if all hands are on deck, I think Cleveland definitely has the advantage here. I think their offense, their front 9 forwards are all phenomenal. All capable of carrying the puck, all capable of scoring, all capable of passing. There's really not many holes up front, and the defense is going to have, Team D's going to have to stand up tall to stop them. I think Manitoba is definitely able to do that. I like a lot of the players that they have. I like Timmy Z. I think he's been phenomenal. Lewis 222, Mafia Man. I mean, we kind of went through and touched on some of the players when we broke down the series. Again, my brain's saying you got to go with Cleveland. Especially if all hands are on deck. I think regaining Sieg is definitely something that's going to play, into that. T-Ball is a great defenseman. Adam D's played well. Troy's played extremely well. You had a Har 84 FRM come in. He replaced Shirk, I believe, and he won his playoff game against the Griffins. I got to go with Cleveland here. I think their goaltending is also a little bit better. I think Maximus is probably the best goalie in the series right now.
And, these teams 2-2 during the season against each other. The Moose with a good 27 more shots on goal in their matchups. Time on attack pretty close as well. Cleveland taking a lot more penalties. I just think right now the Moose are a little bit more disciplined and have been on a pretty steady pace. Now, it'll all, again, depend on who's going out there to play for the Moose and who's going to be available for Vibes. As he said, many times, ECU City for him and his team. And will that be the case again for this series? That's the thing that, to me, this series hinges on, is the availability of players and will Vibes have the full complement of what he needs in order to compete in this one. This you never know what Vibes is thinking or what he's going to do, and that's what scares me the most about this. But I'm at this point, I kind of feel like the Moose will figure out a way to do this, and I'm going to pick the Moose in 7.
I think it's going to be a very close series. I like Cleveland in 7. It's a very half-hearted guess. It's say that they'll win, but you're right. It could definitely hinge on ECUs, and I think it can go both ways, to be quite honest. In terms of how an ECU steps up or even plays, all that. I think both teams have had those issues, especially in the last couple of weeks. And I think that'll be the deciding factor. I think Cleveland's offense is just a little bit better, and I think that's what gives them the edge in my mind.
Good picks, boys. Someone's going to be really wrong, though. I don't know who, but someone's going to be wrong.
Well, I mean, someone's also going to be right, so we'll see.
Someone's going to be right, but someone's definitely going to be wrong.
Definitely, because there's 2 picks, and both of them can't happen at the same time, so someone's going to be naturally right, and someone's going to be naturally wrong.
Yeah, but so
who'd you pick, Vibes? You gonna keep this going?
Someone's gonna be wrong.
I think Ryan has a lot more stamina than you, so you may want to stop this argument now.
He just made me laugh. That's all. That's probably the first time I've ever actually really laughed on this show. But yeah, someone's gonna be wrong, Rye. All right, I'm done. I'm finished. Okay, tell me someone's gonna be right?
No. I'll concede. I'll let you win.
All right.
Let's move on. Let's go over to the East. Thunderbirds and the Bears, the first one we'll talk about. And amazingly enough, Thunderbirds have taken the series in this season 3-2. Total shots on goal, 101-67 in favor of Springfield, which is amazing. But they're down 5 goals negative to Hershey. So a time on attack, a few minutes difference in favor of Hershey. A lot more penalty minutes on the Springfield side. So this almost suggests that they have played with a lot of reckless abandon and just tossing pucks on the net constantly. Is that the way to beat Hershey, Vibes? What do you think is the best way for Springfield to go about this?
Ask nicely if they can win.
Yeah, I don't think I mean, Swagger's a really nice guy, but he'd rather hit you with a sledgehammer.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess just play team defense and try to find a way to neutralize the forwards of the Bears somehow. If you were going to be able to exploit the Bears, it's got to be on defense. I don't know. Just try to make Moose overplay the puck. Try to bait him to one side. Look, Moose is really good positionally. That's probably the biggest strength of Moose is he's one of the best positional goalies in the entire league. And this is a tall order for the Birds. I don't know. I mean, I guess they're the last bird standing, so that's something to be happy about, and good for you on that. And I don't know if it's probably the end of the road here for them. I could start singing Boys to Men if you want me to.
I gotta agree with you, though. I mean, I don't see Springfield being able to stand up to Hershey. I think Moose, will. I don't think they have enough players that are dynamic enough to beat them, if that makes sense, up front. I definitely do think that their goalies can steal a couple games, and I think that's going to be, where they get their wins and how they win. I think Bacon Weave is a solid goaltender, and McGann can definitely steal one or two.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to rely on terrific goaltending, really good team defense, and really making it, when and beating them on the rush. I don't see them beating, Moose when they're set up in a cycle, and he's able to sit back and watch the play go around and around and around.
Mm-hmm.
I think the way to beat him is on the rush, and I don't know if they can do that.
Picks?
Hershey in 5.
Hershey in 3.
Oh, wow. That's pretty brutal.
Let's give him a game. Hershey in 5. I hate to backpack off of Ryan, but
Someone's
Hershey in 5. I think we both might be right.
I think all three of us might. This is what scares me, is that I'm agreeing with you two guys. What scares me most is I'm agreeing with Vibes. I think Hershey in 5 as well. And goaltending, could wind up making the difference. I think part of that for Hershey is, Duelis has played well in his one game so far in the playoffs. Can he contribute at the level that the Bears need him to contribute? If I know Swagger like I know him, and he might hate me for saying this, he's going to do a lot of what he did with me last season, and that is getting me out front in the first game ahead of Moose. So my guess is that he started Duelis in the first game in this first series. My guess is he probably will start him against Springfield in game 1 on Sunday, and that might be Springfield's opportunity to take one right away. But if Duelis plays really well and backstops a nice victory like he did in game 1 against Bridgeport, I think this could be a quicker series than Springfield ever thought. I'm picking.
Someone's going to be right.
Hershey in 5. We all said. The final series is that of Syracuse and Binghamton. And of course, we saw a fun game last night between these two teams, and my guess is we're going to see more of that in this series coming up. With did I say Binghamton? Wow, that's stupid of me. It is Toronto and Syracuse. Sorry about that. Toronto has taken the season series 3 games to 2. Stats are, for the most part, everything is relatively close. The Crunch have a little more time on attack, but everything else is relatively close. These, there've been a couple of close games, a couple of multi-goal wins, and a shutout for Syracuse against Toronto midway through the season. But again, 2 very solid teams, 2 incredibly good offenses, and to me, it really comes down to the first line or 2 for Syracuse. Can they put enough pressure on and beat either Mello or Mellon and that defense enough times to be able to give themselves, a couple of victories when they need it? I think that line with Lobo is going to have to produce and continue to win. Much like they did against the series in Binghamton, I think they need to win their games in order for them to have a chance. If that line loses one, I think Toronto takes this series. I just think the Marlies have an awful lot, and I think the series will go 7, but I'm going to take Toronto in this one.
I gotta agree. I mean, looking at Toronto, I think they're the better team going into this. Not saying that Syracuse isn't going to put up a tough test for them. Mm-hmm. They have a lot of really good players. We've talked again about this Lobo, Nazi. I think Leroy 420 is a solid player. Ilak can play. Mm-hmm. Up front, Syracuse definitely has a lot of weapons. However, I think Toronto just has more. You look at every line that they have, and they have guys that are just producing. And then you go down and you look at the defenses for both teams. And when I look at this, that Toronto team is fantastic. I mean, you have Corey, Phillies, Berger, Davy Donuts, and then, Jay Stevens, who's a very, very capable defenseman. I had him on my Iowa teams. He's a great player, and then King Ringpin is solid in his own right as well. On the other side, you have Tenor, Sin, and then like Crazy 757. However, I just think that the team Toronto is just overall a little that much better. I think Toronto wins in 6.
If Lobo tries to be a scrub hunter in this series, Toronto's going to turn him into Elmer Fudd. There's no way around it versus this Toronto team. You are not going to be able to cherry pick and try and squeeze your way into easy situations. They're going to come at you in waves. The offense is going to come at you in waves. The defense is going to be there in every single game. Maybe they have one pair maybe that's a little light. But that being said, look, Toronto is they are arguably the most complete team in the entire league. I think they're a more complete team than Syracuse is. And I ultimately think that Toronto wins this series. And again, I'm in agreement with Ryan. I'm going to pick Toronto in 6.
So that is it for our picks on this next round, the quarterfinals. Again, some good matchups coming up, and there's going to be a lot of fun games to watch. There'll be hopefully most everybody's streaming, but you never know with some of these teams. But most of these teams that are in it now tend to have a streamer up during a game, so we'll get a chance to watch all these great matchups. And I am not playing, but I'm looking forward to seeing these games come Sunday night. Ryan, any final thoughts from what you've seen so far in the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, looking at the matchups, I think that Toronto Syracuse matchup can be the best series going right now. Mm-hmm. But all of them are going to be a lot of fun to watch. I think the last point I wanted to make was IHL's coming up. I think tonight's the last, tomorrow is the last time you can sign up.
Tomorrow, yeah.
So for all you losers, it's going to be, it looks like it'll be a little bit of fun. I was looking at some of the management in it. You have some familiar faces like Jay Tryhard, just something to do while the playoffs are going on.
They're looking to get, another couple dozen to sign up to be able to have a decent squad of teams. So get in there and sign up for IHL. It's a short run. It's just a way to keep going, keep playing this game. If you haven't been playing competitively in a league for a little bit, jump on and join up on the IHL PSN. You can go to the main page on LeagueGaming.com. To your right, down the page, you'll see the League Gaming leagues and the red sign-up buttons next to it. Make sure you sign up for the PSN IHL. Otherwise, we won't see you there. Vibes, I'm going to, of course, give you the final word as usual.
I told you last night I stabbed myself in the foot. I was actually looking at it before. It's kind of bad. I really fucked myself up. It cut the whole top of my foot. It's fucking not good. I'm reading my team. I dropped a pair of shears. No, I dropped a pair of shears on my fucking foot, and it stabbed me in the foot, dude.
For those of you under 45, shears are another word for scissors, basically.
Yeah, they're like really sharp scissors, and they came to a point, and it fucking stabbed me. It kind of hurt.
Women usually use when they're doing crafts.
Yeah, usually. No, I wasn't knitting. I was trying to cut something. They're shears. They're good scissors. I'm reading my team chat right now, and apparently Domi, who is, I guess he knows Beal in real life, is driving to Beal's house to punch him in the face. Oh. So stay tuned.
Wow. Good thing I picked the Moose. I may have to change that. Jeez.
I'll punch you in the fucking mouth. Okay, that's interesting. That's my team chat. Yep. All right.
That sounds like fun.
Cleveland in 7. I'm changing. I'm officially changing my pick. I'm not kidding. I'm changing my pick. You've given me insider information that can be incredibly helpful. I'm going Cleveland in 7. That'll make Fur Days and Derms a little happier.
All right. Someone's gonna be wrong.
Well, you're saying maybe both of us are going to be wrong.
You say.
I'm making my change right now on the website. Cleveland in 7. Oh man. Well, listen, guys. Again, thanks for joining me tonight. Another fun evening of a show. Got a lot of good action to watch coming up on Sunday, and we'll be back during the week to talk hockey with some live games. And next Friday, of course, we'll be back. We'll be back to the show.